But this is just the news. I'm Faye D'Souza. Thank you for joining me. Here are the headlines for today. We have a lot of news to work through, so I'm going to get straight to it. As always, I've always considered the price of petrol, diesel and LPG to be our most important story because it affects every single Indian citizen across the board. So that remains our focus today. Petrol prices have hit an all-time high after one more hike. It was hiked by 30 paise on petrol and 35 paise on diesel respectively. With this now, diesel has crossed 100 rupees in the city of Mumbai for the first time ever in the history of our country. Petrol in Mumbai is more than 110 rupees. So a litre of petrol in Mumbai will cost you now 110 rupees and 41 paise. Diesel is at 101 rupees and 3 paise. This has never happened before. In Delhi, petrol is 104 rupees and diesel is 93 rupees and 17 paise. Now, quickly to break this down for you, the price of crude oil, which is the main ingredient that we import and then refine in order to make petrol and diesel and all of the other products, is now at $82 a barrel. It was at $72 a barrel a month ago, and that is why we're seeing this sharp price increase. But we must put this into perspective. When the lockdowns were announced across the world in March, April, May last year in 2020, the price of crude fell sharply to almost less than $30 a barrel. What is now 82 was $30 a barrel. And so the price of petrol should have also fallen sharply, but it didn't because the government at that point, the central government, sharply increased its taxes and absorbed the difference. Now what has happened is that $30 a barrel has gone up to 82, but the tax remains the same, which is why our prices are so high. So actually you would be paying about 45 or 46 rupees for petrol. That's what it really costs. Everything above 46 to 110 is now state and central taxes that have not been brought down at all to provide any sort of humanitarian relief to the citizens. In other news, Union Minister Ajay Mishra's son Ashish Mishra, who is the prime accused in the Lakhimpur Kheri violence case, has been sent to 3 days police remand. Ashish Mishra was arrested on Saturday after 12 hours of questioning in the Lakhimpur Kheri violence case. The police said that he was being evasive during the questioning with his answers. The police issued 2 summons to him, the first of which he refused to honor and didn't show up. The second one, he did show up, but that's not before the Supreme Court pulled up the Uttar Pradesh police for treating him with kid gloves and being nicer to him than the other accused in the rest of their cases. Ashish Mishra is named in an FIR following allegations that he was in one of the vehicles in the convoy that mowed down the 4 farmers who were protesting in Uttar Pradesh. On the other hand, a second FIR has also been lodged by the Uttar Pradesh police that claims that, and I quote, bad elements were present among the protesters that attacked BJP workers who were in the SUV. It does not mention anything about the mowing down of the farmers at that incident. In the meantime, Congress workers and leaders organized a silent demonstration outside of Raj Bhavan in Jammu to protest the Lakhimpur Kheri violence. They demanded that Union Minister Ajay Mishra resign. As we know, in the city of Maharashtra, the Maharashtra Vikas Aghadi government, which is a coalition of the Shiv Sena, the NCP and the Congress, called a bandh on their own state today. A statewide bandh for the 11th of October to protest the Lakhimpur Kheri violence. The Indian Express reported today that 8 buses in Mumbai, owned by the government, and 1 leased bus were vandalized between midnight last night and this morning in Dharavi, Mankud, Shivajinagar, Charkop, Oshiwara, Deonar and in Orbit Mall. Shiv Sena MP Sanjay Raut said the bandh was what he called 100% successful. And reacting to incidents of vandalism, he said, and I quote, such minor incidents take place during protests all over the world, end quote. BJP leader and former Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis said that this is the first time in the history of independent India that those who have the responsibility of law and order called a bandh in their own cabinet meeting. The Supreme Court and the Bombay High Court had banned such bandhs and had fined the Shiv Sena in the past. We demand that the High Court takes cognizance of it. Previously, a day ago, Devendra Fadnavis said the government should not politicize the Lakhimpur Kheri violence. Union Minister for Home Amit Shah met with two of his colleagues in charge of coal and power ministries today because of concerns of an electricity shortage that may be caused because of inadequate supply of coal. Now, this is where it's coming from. The Delhi government put out an SOS on Saturday saying that if the central government doesn't look into the supply of coal, Delhi will face severe power shortage. Several other states have also complained. Now, this is what has been happening. The Ministry of Coal has said that the fear of disruption of power is entirely misplaced and there's nothing to worry about. Domestic supplies are fine. Where is the concerns of this shortage coming from? So basically, China has shut its factories and that has caused a disruption in supply of coal globally and a sharp increase in the global price of coal. In India, apart from the second wave of COVID that caused some disruption in our mines, there's also been continuous rain, and the rain disrupts mining work and it also disrupts the transport of coal. So from what we understand right now, based on what the ministry has said, that we have enough coal for about 4 days, but normally coal plants, power generation plants that depend on coal in India have about 15 days of coal supply available. Now, according to the ministry, we have 7.2 million tons, which is sufficient for 4 days. This statement came out on Sunday. Let's take a look at what the state governments have said so far. So on Saturday, which was the 9th of October, the Kejriwal government wrote a letter to the Prime Minister claiming that coal shortage is affecting power generation for plants in the national capital region, and said that the government has to look into this immediately. This is what Arvind Kejriwal has said at an event today. He said, the situation is critical. Many chief ministers have written about it to the central government. We're all working together to improve the situation, end quote. In Mumbai, on the 10th of October, the Indian Express reported that generation sets are working at Chandrapur, Nasik and some other places. They're not working right now. The Energy Secretary of Maharashtra has said that we have coal stock to last 1.5 days. We're repeatedly asking the central government to give us coal. Coal that's being sent to us is not sufficient at this rate. We will have to start load shedding. Bihar Chief Minister on the 11th of October said it is a fact that there is a problem considering the requirement as per our demand. We either get National Thermal Power Corporation or from private companies, but the supply is affected. There are some reasons due to which the situation has arisen. It's not only Bihar, it's other states as well. Assam's electricity distributor had, in an ad, warned of inevitable outages of power because of limited coal availability as well. Andhra Pradesh, in a letter to the Prime Minister on Friday, the Chief Minister said that the power demand is increased by 15% in the last 6 months and there is a coal shortage. Punjab said 3 thermal power plants are forced to shut down because of an increase in, they need an increase of coal supply to the state. According to NDTV, residents of Bihar, Rajasthan and Jharkhand are experiencing power cuts stretching up to 14 hours a day right now. The central government has said that there is nothing to worry about, but we're going to keep an eye on this story for you because it seems to be a developing story. In other news, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi today launched what was called the Indian Space Association, or ISPA. At a virtual event. The Prime Minister said the government can no longer act as a handler for the space sector, but rather work as an enabler, suggesting the private sector needs to take over. ISPA is a private industry body to help boost space technology in India. The founding members include OneWeb, Bharti Airtel, MapMy India and a couple of other organizations. The Prime Minister said the government's policies will help ensure innovation in the private sector. He also said, and this is important, ISRO's facilities will be opened up to the private sector. Now remember, ISRO is entirely taxpayer funded. The taxpayers of India have been funding ISRO for the last several decades, since the 1960s when it was started. We'll have to understand what it means when the government says ISRO's facilities will be opened up to the private sector. Union Minister Amit Shah, during a televised interview, has said that an illiterate person is a burden to the country and cannot be a good citizen. Shah made the remark when speaking to Sunset TV about the Prime Minister's achievements in the last 20 years, both as Chief Minister of Gujarat and as Prime Minister of India. He was talking about the PM's contribution that helped Gujarat achieve 100% primary school enrollment. Shah claimed that the Prime Minister has addressed the problem of high school dropout rate at primary levels in schools across the country. He basically says you can gauge what contribution has been made in Gujarat and India. An illiterate person is a big burden to the country. They neither know their constitutional rights nor duties. How can they be good citizens? End quote. The latest rounds of talks between the Indian and Chinese military commanders over the 17-month standoff in Ladakh failed on Sunday. This was the 13th round of military talks between the two countries after the Galwan Valley incident in June last year. The Indian Army authorities have said that the Chinese side is not agreeable and could not provide any forward-looking proposals. The Chinese side has made a similar statement through their state-owned media, saying that the Indian side is not being reasonable. The Indian Army statement went on to say, and I quote, "The two sides have agreed to maintain communications and also maintain stability on the ground. It is our expectation that the Chinese side will take into account the overall perspective of bilateral relations and will work towards an early resolution of the remaining issues." In the meantime, the Chinese authorities have said, and I quote, "India insists on being unreasonable and unrealistic demands, adding to difficulties to the negotiations." End quote. In other domestic news, the Karnataka Health Minister D.K. Sudhakar on Sunday, when speaking on mental health and managing stress, said that Indian women want to stay single and are unwilling to give birth even after they get married and desire children by surrogacy, and this is one of the main problems or the main issues in our country right now. Speaking on an event at World Mental Health Day at the Niman's Hospital in Bangalore, he said, and I quote, "Today I'm sorry to say this, but a lot of modern women in India want to stay single. Even after they get married, they don't want to give birth. They want surrogacy. So there is a paradigm shift in our thinking, which is not good." According to PTI, he also said that Western influence on Indian women has resulted in people not wanting to live with their parents anymore. Following these comments, the BJP General Secretary, C.T. Ravi, has said every woman is not like this. It's happening because Western influence and micro-families. In India, we still have faith in family, unlike countries like USA and UK. It does seem like these politicians seem to believe that a large cause of the problems in India is the fact that women in our country finally have agency and are making decisions on how to remain independent. It seems to be shaking the very structure that they stand on. A quick look at our COVID numbers. India reported 18,132 new COVID cases, which is marginally lower than yesterday's figure. Kerala's numbers are dropping sharply. 6,996 new COVID cases in Kerala, a sharp drop from the 12,000, 13,000 cases per day we were seeing a couple of weeks ago. Malaysia and Singapore have announced that it will ease its travel restrictions for international and domestic travelers. Malaysia plans to open its borders from Monday after reaching 90% vaccination in the country. Singapore will be opening its borders to vaccinated travelers from 11 countries on the 19th of October. It's likely that most of these 11 countries are just Western countries. India is not on the list. The countries now open for Singapore after the 19th of October, Denmark, France, Italy, Netherlands, Spain, Germany, and the United Kingdom, along with the US and Canada. The only Asian country on the list is Brunei. Visitors from South Korea will be allowed after the 15th of November. Onto a quick story from the world of business. Now, there was an interesting upload on Twitter that Rakesh Jhunjhunwala had met the Prime Minister a few days ago. When asked at a public event by India Today's Rahul Kanwar what the conversation was about between Mr. Jhunjhunwala and the Prime Minister, Mr. Jhunjhunwala reported saying that, "I won't tell you what I said to my wife on our wedding night," referring to his conversation with the Prime Minister. But now we understand that the central government has given a go-ahead to investor Rakesh Jhunjhunwala's airline company called Akasa. The Aviation Ministry has also issued a no-objection certificate, And now the company will have to apply for the air operator permit or license from the DGCA, which is the Director General of Civil Aviation. This will be a low-cost carrier backed by Mr. Jhunjhunwala, expected to launch early next year. Jhunjhunwala will hold 40% stake in the company. Akasa is all set to compete with Indigo and SpiceJet. News coming in from across the world right now. This is our international segment. Now, tensions are escalating between Taiwan and China. Taiwan's president has said it will not bow to pressure from China and will defend its democratic way of life. The Taiwanese president has said, and I quote, "We will do our utmost to prevent the status quo from being unilaterally altered. We will continue to bolster our national defense and demonstrate our determination to defend ourselves in order to ensure that nobody can force Taiwan to take the path China has laid out for us," end quote. This comes after Chinese President Xi Jinping vowed to fulfill reunification. Now, to give you context, Taiwan considers itself a sovereign state. China views it as a breakaway province that it wants to reunite with China. China has said in a speech, the speech by the Taiwanese president has incited confrontation. Earlier, Chinese fighter jets flew into the Taiwan air defense zone and displayed the power as a display of power by Chinese authorities. In the meantime, the United States has warned China that this provocative military activity has undermined regional peace and stability. The US and the Taliban held their first talks in Qatar since the US troops left Afghanistan in August. In a statement, the Taliban said, and I quote, "US representatives have stated that they will give humanitarian assistance to Afghans and provide facilities for other humanitarian organizations to deliver aid." It added that the Taliban would cooperate with charitable groups in delivering humanitarian assistance to those deserving transparently and will facilitate principal movement of foreign nationals. However, the US is yet to formally confirm the Taliban's claim on aid. US spokesperson Ned Price has said the two sides had discussed the provisions of robust humanitarian assistance directly to the Afghan people. Now, in the middle of Lebanon's energy and economic crisis, a fire erupted in Lebanon's oil facility on Monday. Firefighters have now contained the blaze and no casualties have been reported. In the meantime, Lebanon suffered a total power outage over the weekend, leaving its population of 6 million people without centrally generated electricity for 24 hours. And a piece of positive news before we leave you for today. 16-year-old Sucheta Satish from Kerala earned her place in the Guinness Book of World Records after singing 120 songs in 120 languages for 7 hours and 20 minutes. The Music Beyond Borders concert was held in Dubai. Songs were sung in 29 Indian languages and 91 world languages. She's broken the record set by another Indian singer, Keshiraju Srinivas, who sang 76 languages back in 2008. That brings us to the end of this bulletin of Just the News. Thank you so much for listening. It was a slightly longer bulletin today, but we had a lot to cover. So leave us a star in the comment section if you reached the end of the bulletin, and I know how many of you got to the end. And also, it's always nice to read your feedback, so leave us some feedback as well. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.